Hey, Algebra 1, we're just going to start the first problem in your notes. So go ahead and make sure you don't need to glue this in yet, but just follow along in your notes, and then when we're done with this, you can glue it in later. Okay, so again, with this, you want to, first of all, let's make sure you label this correctly. When you put this in your notes, you're going to want to label it Solving Systems of Equations Algebraically. Okay, you put that in your notebook. And now, just remember, we're going to approach this just like we did the last topic, where we need to find two things. We need to find M, the slope, and B, our y-intercept, or starting point. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that first. Okay, so we're going to find our starting points. So Post Falls High School in Idaho has 1,160 students. Has, that's a key word that tells us that this is the starting point, because we're starting with 1,160 students, or 1,160. And then it says after that it is growing by 22 students per year. So growing, another key word for the slope, and then 22 students per year. Remember, per is a key word too to know that that's slope. Okay, so now for Richmond High School in Indiana, which has 1,900 students, has, again the same words, has 1,900, and is shrinking by 15 students per year. Now what we need to keep in mind there is that it says shrinking. Shrinking doesn't mean getting bigger, it means getting smaller, which means a negative slope. Okay? So now what we want to do is write a rule. We're going to write a rule that represents the population at Richmond High School and another rule that represents the population at Post Falls High School. Okay? And identify what X and Y represent. Okay, so remember from the last chapter or the last couple chapters, a rule is the same thing as an equation. So we're going to make an equation. Okay, so remember we start all of our equations with y. Okay, now for the first one, Post Falls High School, remember that we do y equals mx plus b. Okay, and the slope, or m, for the first one is 22. And it says growing, so we know it's positive, 22x, plus the starting point, which is 1,160. Okay? And then for the population of Richmond, okay, it says shrinking 15 students per year. So remember I said that's going to be a negative slope because we're shrinking, so negative 15 this time, x, plus our starting point, 1,900. Okay? And now the last part, it says, what is x and y? Well, x and y, we can find out what that is by looking at the slope. So if we go to the slope, you first look at the number, then the word right after the slope is going to be the y. Because remember, slope is y, change in y, over change in x. So y goes first. So students is what y represents. And then the word after per, okay, is going to be our x. So x represents years. So the question is, should I make a table or a graph? Why or why not? Well, if I make a table, look at the starting points. That means I'd have to start with 1,160 and add 22 every time. Or subtract 15 and start with 1,900. Those are big numbers to put in a table. That sounds kind of difficult. And let's think about a graph. If I made a graph, my starting point would be like way up here at 1,160, and my other one would be like way up there, and that'd be really hard to graph. Okay? So I don't really like either idea of doing a table or a graph. So we do have another way, and that's solving algebraically, and that's what we're doing today. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to set the equations equal to each other and solve to find out when these high schools have the same population. So remember, we were looking in the last notes, we were trying to figure out where they're the same. We're doing that here. So what you're going to do is you take the first equation and you're going to write it here, but without the y. We take away the y. So 22x plus 1,160, and then we set it equal to the other equation without the y, and we'll bring that here. And now what we're going to do is solve for x. Okay, so I want x to be on the left. So what I'm going to do here first is add 15. Cancels out. Add 15 here. Okay. Now we have this plus this would be 37x plus 1,160 equals 1,900. Now, I don't want any numbers on this side, so I'm going to subtract 1,160 from here, and again from the other side. Now I have 37x equals, let's see, this will be 740. Okay, now I divide both sides by 37. So I'm going to grab my calculator real quick and divide that. And x equals 20. Okay. So I got 20. Remember, x is years, so that means 20 years. So again, when will the population be the same? Well, in 20 years. The question is, what will they have? What will the population be? And we're going to find that out in class tomorrow. So we'll stop there. So you can stop your notes here, and we'll finish tomorrow.